on their level now. But TIZS is going to start off with that deck in particular versus Shaxy, a matchup that we have seen quite often throughout the past couple of weeks, and I've been honestly going back and forth on who I think is favored. I still think it slightly comes out in favor of the OTK Demon Hunter, but there are a lot of additional percentage points to be had as Rogue if you hedge around Glide.
Absolutely, that's the big one. We, of course, harken back to the ingenious match that was played by Alan in Demon Hunter vs. Rogue, where he just went super tempo heavy. He went like prep nothing, shadow step prize plunger at the start of the game. And already, here for TIZS, the prize plunger on 1. He's never expecting this to do much, right? It can be hero powered on 1, hero powered on 2, cleared off with one of the myriad removal spells, but it's a card out of his deck, because if Glide comes down, you never want to draw Prize Plunder in this matchup. There simply aren't enough threats to remove. So by just hemorrhaging cards in this matchup, it means that even if Glide does come down, he is distilling his deck like a fine stew down to just the juicy goodness of card draw and combo pieces.
Not really heard the word distill used for stew.
Or reduce, I suppose.
Okay, okay, sure. It's like if you're making some sort of chemical stew, maybe. But I also want to bring up, pretty interesting for Shaxy to not hero power the Prize Plunder on turn 1, because even without a Neophyte played, he's not guaranteed to progressed quest this turn, right, with the Spectral in the middle, and I guess he didn't even know about the Restaurant Viper he'd have drawn by that point. So I was thinking it would make sense to just play quest turn 2 and then fit in another hero power, and you've taken 2 less damage by that point if you first hero power the Prize Plunder. In the world of Neophyte, it kind of comes out the same also, but you took less damage. Like, he wouldn't have been able to play the Studies, fair enough, but you never rely on that as a quest completion in this spot anyway.
Obviously, TIZS does need to be a little afraid. The Shaxy just played Illidari Studies without playing the reward, which is obviously not a hard read on Glide in hand, but it often implies that Glide is in an outcast position and you're trying to bank a mana for the following turn, but still wasn't afraid into not going for the Shroud of Concealment, which I think is absolutely correct. You can play around Glide up until a point, but you can't just sabotage your entire game plan.
This is a bit complex for Shaxy now because of all the interplay of the discounts here. Like, if you start I-Beam to unlock the Crimson Sigil Runner, the Sigil Runner will cost 1 again because of the Studies effect being used on I-Beam, which means that he wouldn't then have the mana to progress the quest. So I was thinking if there was going to be quest progression this turn, it would start with playing the Spellscream Blast and then using the Spectral Sight from the left, maybe trading the Viper after that. But Shaxy is just saying, I'm not going to do that at all, don't want to use the coin like that. He's going to clear the board, and that's already a big part of the combo redundancy lost. So I would say it's kind of a win for TIZS.
Agreed. But as you can see from his hesitance, his big sigh there as well, it's just Glide that he's afraid of. Outside of that, I would argue this is a relatively simple turn. You trade the Guild Trader, you proc the rest of your hand. Don't necessarily love this ordering. It's not wrong because you get a 3-mana Guild Trader in your deck, which maybe makes your combo easier later on, but I would argue you would rather have a different discount, right, to go with a stronger field contact.
I would agree. It's just for the immediacy. For anybody who wasn't aware, tradable cards do retain discounts if the card is traded back into the deck, as in with their key card text. If they are shuffled back by other means, they would lose any other discounts applied, I think.
Yes, I believe that was changed recently.
Shaxy gets Sigil of Alacrity here, which is pretty big. I don't think it's very likely for him to complete another quest stage, even with the coin, with 3 mana remaining. So I think he does just take the rest of this turn to just hero power, chill for a little bit. And now TIZS should know that this leftmost card is the coin. It doesn't give you a read on no glide, but it kind of makes you feel like it's less likely by this late in the game.
Juicy draw here for TIZS, though. He hasn't been glided, his discounts left in play, and unless he wants to go for double field contact, which I'm not really feeling on this turn, I do think the swindle seems very well timed here.
Gonna start with the zero-cost Ethereal Aug Merchant. TIZS, a man after my own heart, right? He's willing to use Ethereal Aug Merchant to get extra draws in the early game, which I do think makes sense versus a deck that doesn't have an effect that deletes cards from your deck, unlike Altar of Fire, for example. The rest of what he wants to use this mana for is questionable, though, because Penflinger doesn't have a necessarily convenient target. I think Penflinger and then step the Contact would be okay, but he's actually going to step the Octobot here.
This is where things get really interesting, because I think I agree with this play of going step Octobot, reduce the cost of your hand. But you have to be careful now. I guess this is where the Guild Trader comes in, because it means you can be a little bit more liberal with your Org Merchants. He doesn't necessarily have to step it later on in the game, but he only has one step, one Field Contact left in hand, and one Org Merchant. His combo pieces, while still absolutely there, he can do the full combo. You got to be a little bit careful now. Things could fall apart if you're not diligently deciding which combo pieces are going to be used and which are going to be used for draw.
Shaxy starting with the double jump, I think, hoping to get Glide there to reset these discounts, but doesn't find it. He at least has Immolation Aura and can still progress the quest here, but it's getting scary knowing that TIZS got even more discounts. You would smell the potential of a second Field Contact.
Okay, we're just looking at trying to progress the quest on this turn, which is obviously still possible, but I guess now Shaxy actually just deviating away, looking at a turn 7 Kurtrus instead, which obviously hurts a little as it's fairly slow, but it's still quick enough. You can theoretically get there in time.
All right, TIZS going in with the second Contact, hoping to find a Shadow Step at the end of this, because I don't think he can realistically get to the bottom of his deck with this little mana remaining.
Was this definitely a Field Contact turn? I guess you draw so many cards with the Swindle as well.
He can... I mean, it's a lot of chances to find Shadow Step, so I think it's fair, but it's a little bit scary for sure. Oh, okay. I thought he was going to go Swindle and then Passage for the step, but if he's ending here, I don't know about this. That's the last Contact.
Right, and there's still 10 cards left in deck. It's far from guaranteed. And again, if he can get to the bottom of his deck by just going Secret Passage, dumping those cards, Shroud of Concealment as well, Swindle, of course, can be used to draw the bleeds out of his deck once he does get to that point. Apologies for the disconnect issue. I believe this is just a spectator problem. We should be able to, or a slight disconnect, very, very brief. The game will pause, so we'll be able to get back into things in a moment. But it's a very interesting juncture for TIZS. It's a very different gameplay or style of play than we would see from maybe Possessi, for example, who is a much more cautious Garrote Rogue player that very possibly leads him to lethal a turn later, but it's much more guaranteed, much more safe than this very, very aggressive approach to take the matchup.
Yeah. Despite not finding the Shadow Step for the Field Contact, TIZS still does have ways to thin his deck, though, because he's sitting on second Shroud and the Swindle here, and then another Secret Passage. And he does have some damage redundancy as well with the Ignites, so it's not as though the Field Contact being gone is going to be no more win condition for him. It's just going to be slower and not guaranteed for a couple turns. Meanwhile, though, he has put Shaxy in a position where clearing this Field Contact is very expensive. He could get the I-Beam into Outcast position, because I don't think Shaxy wants to use Fell Scream Blast, the second copy on this.
I grow impatient.
Yeah, it does mean that if he wants to actually clear it, I think he has to miss out on quest this turn, because he would have to either get very lucky off the Sigil Runner or just go for the Acrobatics, which wouldn't complete the quest, which means it's another turn for TIZS to try and draw through his deck. Obviously, both Field Contacts gone, as we were alluding to, but just Secret Passage and then dump all 3 cards that you draw, or all 4 cards, sorry, is a reasonable game plan and does get him that little bit closer to the end of his deck.
I would like to see him go for Shroud before the Passage, because there's only 3 minions remaining, right? So you want to get the Shroud to actually draw them so that the Passage can truly dump cards that you wouldn't get from the Shroud in the first place, because there's an outcome where the Shroud doesn't get any value, so it's all about maximizing this draw here. Okay, does find the last Octobot as well. I think TIZS should take a lot of time to calculate what are the odds of lethal in 2 turns from now, because he can just dump Passage here. Get rid of the last minion, most likely, which is Guardian Og Merchant. There's 2 Brain Freezes that don't particularly matter as well. You just want to delete them from your deck.
Yeah. 100% playing those, going for the Shadow Step as well. Again, not necessary because there's also the Guild Trader as well. Playing that again, Orc Merchant, I think you play the Brain Freeze as well. It looked like there was just roping out there at the end for TIZS. I wonder if he even got all the attacks in.
I hope he did. Oh, he didn't play the Brain Freeze. I think that's major. I think it's fine you didn't play the other Secret Passage because you wouldn't have any mana left anyway. You could argue it's fine to play it just to dump preps, which are still in the deck.
Yeah.
But it's also okay to just assume you get something from Swindle. Maybe you dump it the next turn. But not playing the Brain Freeze maybe puts him back a whole turn. We'll see. Right now, the Neophyte coming down again is still a big pain for Shaxy, though. It's another turn where it's still not Kurtrus in hand, it looks like.
And the really weird thing for Shaxy is that he actually has a draw for just lethal next turn, right? With Moarg off the top or Philosophy off the top, I believe he just wins the game with straight up 36 damage combo. So although Glide was a little bit weird to draw it on that turn rather than to try and draw it on the next turn with the double jump, maybe he's just trying to thin his deck, just give himself an out for lethal right off the top. But TIZS looks like he's just going in. Does he have lethal with just Ignites and Sinister Strikes if he can draw a couple of bleeds?
Yes, I think it only needs to be 1 bleed actually because of all the spell damage. So yeah, calculate for TIZS there. Hits it. Obviously, you are very likely to get bleed there because Swindle will guarantee draw a spell, and the most frequent spell in his deck by that point is the 3 bleeds. There's also an out to draw the other Garrote base card, which is the same as drawing bleed if you have the mana to play it. And he did have that prep, or like, well, I guess the prep came from the Swindle, but like there's a lot of good outcomes for TIZS there. Obviously, it wasn't 100% lethal. It did require him to have the foresight to think he could be dead the next turn, to think he was in a bad enough spot to actually go for it there. As it turns out, he could have died the next turn.
Wow, what a weird game. I have never seen it pan out like this, but low-key, I think aside from that roping out at the end, that was actually really smart by TIZS. I'm trying to think like what could have gone wrong with that game plan because it looked pretty genius in that instance. But maybe if he had missed out on a Neophyte for a turn, because the real nail in the coffin for Shaxy on the other side was he couldn't play his removal cards and draw at the same time because it was just Neophyte for 2 turns in a row. And if that had been a possibility, we would maybe have seen Glide plus a Immolation Aura on the same turn. We could have seen a lot more aggressive ways, because a single Glide from that game plan for TIZS could have messed everything up, because with all the cards shuffled back into your deck and no field contacts, things get much more difficult to actually complete the combo.
It's so cool to see yet another style of Garrote Rogue played, because we can make that Glide argument of being able to mess TIZS up at any point from basically any turn in that game he played. So it seems to me that TIZS was just playing a game plan where he feels that on average he won't get to see the bottom of his deck anyway, given the amount of disruption Glide provides. And so he was just kind of trying to put together a lethal that's not 100%, but saying this gets there against a Glide more often anyway, just by playing the draw so aggressively, not trying to hold on to field contact to see the bottom of your deck, because you might be punished for holding field contact if there's a Glide.
That's true.
It's a very different style, which happened to work out for him here, and I'm happy to see that there's still evolutions to the way this matchup should be played. But Shaxy will be moving on to the Quest Mage now, deviating from that Demon Hunter for a bit, which does have the one of Magtheridon. Very, very interesting inclusion in Mage, which I feel is very smart. Like, a lot of the time, Mage lacks targets for their freeze effects. You can give your opponent minions, and minions that benefit you if they all die as well.
But then, Gia, we have the real spice on the other side from TIZS. This is still a Quest Warlock, right? But it is old school. This is a deck that hasn't really existed since the first wave of nerfs to Warlock, right? After it really hit its popularity after Stormwind came out.
This is a deck that does rely on Flesh Giant coming down soon, but it's not very likely to get to a point where you are just completely controlling the board towards the late game, because your curve is a lot lower. You can pop off insane in the first couple turns because you have Flame Imp and Bloodbound Imp. You can finish your quest very, very quickly, but it is sometimes a glass cannon. If your opponent can get ahead of you on board the first couple turns, there's so few comeback mechanisms compared to Handlock.
That's true, and also the fact that you have to deal 24 damage to yourself to be able to complete the quest really puts the glass in glass cannon. Like, you are killing yourself faster than your opponent is killing you a lot of the time, and especially when you're against Quest Mage, which has a very valid game plan of just launch burn at your face even before Varden can come down later on in the game. Things do get very, very scary. However, a strong push onto the board in these early turns. If you can get down these Flesh Giants that are invulnerable to Fire Sale, it could get a little too scary for Shaxy.
That is true. Unfortunately, I don't think we got to see Shaxy's mulligan, but he ends up with a decent hand, right? Ruined Orb can deal with this Flame Imp, and then he curves into Ice Barrier. Classic old Freeze Mage versus Zoot. You love to see Ice Barrier early on. You don't have Frost Nova to just win the game on a stick, but you know, similar concept. Now you have Incanter's Flow.
Evocation instead of Ice Barrier number 2. I was kind of interested in that, not gonna lie. You're not gonna have any trouble playing your Frost spells, of course, but I don't know, Evocation just feels very, very expensive to play without the discount from Sorcerer's Apprentice. Rest in peace.
Back in the day, Derek, our glory days. But it does, however, turn out to be a very impactful Neophyte here, delaying Encounter's Flow and Ice Barrier from Shaxy, and in the meantime, TIZS is going to get so much extra damage going through. Second Neophyte, not going to be nearly as disruptive, but it's just on board as a 3-2, which is what TIZS needs. Next turn, going for the Backfire, trying to look for another Flame Imp, trying to find Flesh Giant sooner rather than later. This Zoo Warlock does get off to the races pretty quickly. Kind of gonna wait for the Nightshade Matron before you play Hand of Gul'dan, but still decent to have that kind of insurance of further card draw in the deck because you are playing cards so quickly.
And weird as it seems, I kind of want to shoot my own tour guide with the Touch of the Nathrazim here, right? Just to guarantee that you're able to play Flesh Giant next turn for 5 mana. Sure, destroy your own board. Flesh Giant is the game plan of this entire deck.
Actually going Arcane Intellect here rather than Encounter Slow, meaning that he is looking for clear options here. You'd have to imagine First Flame was on the list at some point. He does still have access to this Ice Barrier just to delay a little bit further, because I think the Fire Sale can actually catch more minions than this at the moment. Also putting Neophytes in the Raised Dead pool a little bit scary, but the Flesh Giant gonna make that difficult for Shaxy now.
Yeah, that's a good point. Raised Dead is a very real concern with 2 Neophytes knocking about. But there are draws that allow for Shaxy to clear things off here. Refreshing Spring Water is a great start just to open up the possibilities on this turn. Really looking for that Frost spell now to be able to freeze this Giant. But Quest is getting completed quite quick now, actually, as well.
For Shaxy, I'm not even sure if quest completion is his main game plan here rather than just playing a control deck versus TIZS, because while TIZS can realistically get to his Tamsin, there's not that much support for actually fatiguing by that point and trying to kill with her effect. She's just kind of a bonus after you get the big boards by virtue of the cheap Flesh Giants early on.
Fire Sale, okay, see what you get, and then maybe just Incanter's Flow? I know it's very slow, but you got to set up for something impressive here, I think, in one big swing turn.
Yeah, he's 1 mana off being able to clear with the Thalnos and 2 more spells, Ruined Orb and the Ignite, but he does hit Brain Freeze, which is amazing here. Honestly, I think with this whole plan, Shaxy was hoping for Lab Partner to get the full clear guaranteed, but he deviates nicely here on the rope.
And it gets quest level 2 done in the same turn. Very, very impressive. Obviously just looking for a Frost spell. And so he takes Shattering Blast. Sure, I guess that can have some utility. And at the very least, that is just guaranteed quest done next turn.
True. Yeah. especially with a Fire Sale in hand already, I don't think he needed another one necessarily. He is transitioning a little bit more onto the combo game plan rather than pure control. Oh, but this turn from TIZS is so terrible. Didn't hit Nightshade Matron, didn't hit Raised Dead, didn't hit another Flesh Giant. This is just starting to fall apart with all this removal with no targets.
Probably Guild Trader. I was thinking you can just trade it, but yeah, Geomancer, I guess spell damage is actually pretty good.
I don't want to spend 1 mana on trade when we're very soon going to be playing 1 mana cram session, draw 4, right?
Good point.
So like you said, the Shattering Blast does get him the Arcanist Dawn Grasp in hand. He can play Thalnos, Ruined Orb. Doesn't quite clear the Bloodbound Imp yet. Oh, really? Is he drawing for a cheaper Frost spell then?
Maybe?
Honestly, I just want a full greed here, like Flow and Shattering Blast.
Yeah, I can see that.
Okay, so it looks like he's just playing the Thalnos to have it on board then. I don't feel threatened by the Bloodbound Imp if I'm Shaxy here, so... Oh? Wow.
Okay, I mean, you can still just go Shattering Blast plus Tamsin. Oh, Tamsin, again. Varden on the following turn, sorry. Which is good. You know, it at least gets a 7/7 in place. So if there's not a big push onto the board for TIZS, then that's something at least. But obviously, Cult Neophyte does put an end to that plan. So Shaxy does once again have to deviate from that game plan.
Yeah. I am just very surprised to see the Fireball. Not because I was hoping he'd save it for face, right? Because the Zoo Warlock actually has quite a bit of healing. But just to have the mana on Shattering Blast spent so that he has room to play Dawn Grasp next turn, whether there's a Neophyte or not, and also play something else with it, potentially.
Right, so it's only Frost that needs to be played here, but first of all, he needs to actually just not die on this turn.
Right.
And so, well, first of all, I really wish I had a 0 mana spell damage card in hand right now, which feels like a pretty big punish for going for the Thalnos last turn in what was a very undecisive turn, whether or not he would go for the Cram session. But I think you can still make something work here, right? With Geomancer, First Flame, Second Flame, plus Fire Sale, it gets you a clear.
Yeah, I don't even think you need the Second Flame, but... Oh, sorry, both on the Giant? Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, 3 plus 4 plus... Yeah, okay.
Or you could ping instead.
I do like that other play to weave in just the One Thief, potentially. Wow, he's shattering here, so I guess he just wants the Dawn Grasp in hand, but is not going to play it.
I have proven myself. I demand...
Wow,
Really?
he's leaving himself at 11!
Second... okay. I mean, it costs mana to play the Second Flame, but like you said, he's leaving himself very, very close to dead.
I said at 11, I meant at 5. There's 11 on board, so sorry. And now there's the Manari Mosher to bring that up to 14. TIZS just needs 2 more damage here.
Obviously, Quest is at the final level, so he can't get 3 extra damage out of that. And there's basically 0 burst damage in the entire deck until you get Tamsin down, so...
True.
I guess it's pretty much impossible for Shaxy to die on this turn, but this is a very risky line to take.
And for TIZS, like, he can heal to full here.
Oh, yeah.
He can also kill the Varden without having to trade into them. It's just pretty simple. Yeah, I like getting the Mosher value while you can. At some point, you're going to play Tamsin and tap, and that's going to be lethal. That's just how this game works, even if you don't get any more attacks going through. Is he not killing Varden? That surprises me, though. He can still, with the Unstable and the Touch.
You have to, right? That would just be insanity to leave it up.
The order of which you do it is interesting. TIZS is choosing to take 1 extra damage to progress his quest here, which does give him a breakpoint of Flame Imp tap into Tamsin all in 1 turn next turn. So I think it's fine. He doesn't get the full healing here. He's pretty safe at 27.
Well, with Fire Sale doing 6 damage of AoE, obviously Shaxy is able to very, very easily clear the board. The question, of course, is just the follow-up, however, with Tamsin. I mean, he knows that weird ordering from TIZS was obviously not a mistake, and it sets off all kind of alarm bells. Ice Barrier cannot get in the way of that Tamsin damage as well. So realistically, you're just praying here that they don't have a way to kill you with Tamsin on this next turn.
And as it stands, TIZS doesn't have that way, but he still has further healing, right? So if Shaxy can't kill him the next turn, then this tap is just ending the game. So yeah, TIZS tap into Flame Imp, into play Tamsin, into Drain Soul. 1 mana off lethal.
1 mana off lethal. He can go for Raise Dead with the Tamsin.
Oh, he finds it!
That does it. What a sick play from TIZS. The Warlock, the Zoo Quest Warlock in the, well, I was going to say the year 2021, but the month of October. Come on, TIZS. This is looking sick. And he's 2-0 up now. The dream for TIZS to get into playoffs in his final season of Grandmasters, as he's announced his retirement, would be such a nice way to send things off for him.
Man, that was a sick game indeed. Honestly, I was looking at him bailing, just getting the Tamsin in hand, maybe not necessarily playing her, just trying to heal up in full and set up for the Tamsin tap the next turn. But even if he did heal with a couple of Drain Souls, I think that was the maximum because he didn't have mana to then play the Bristleback as well. So there were worlds where he would just die. So Shaxy having, you know, all the burn in hand, 2 flows played, right? He could very likely just draw towards lethal. So TIZS again took a calculated risk there with the backfire to find exactly Raise Dead. He hit it, and it means he is up 2-0 now. I gotta say though, mid-game, very weird from Shaxy. All our questions started to happen when he didn't play Shattering Blast just to guarantee the Varden in hand. But after that, the leaving up Giant turn, that felt like something went wrong there.
Yeah, I didn't necessarily agree with leaving up the Giant. Like, Tempo Thalnos as well to draw an extra card, I think was just very, very mistimed because that extra +1 spell damage, whether you go with the Thalnos or the Geomancer, it doesn't matter. Just banking that mana to go with a bigger clear turn when you have Fire Sale and First Flame in hand was just slightly misaligned, I think, with what the game plan should be, which you very correctly laid out. I think the control game plan was much more what he should have been looking for. But now it's going to be the Paladin against the Mage. And interestingly enough, Gia, in practice, in the many, many games that we played, I was in this exact situation for Shaxy where I decided to hold on to Magtheridon just to see what it did against Paladin. And it didn't feel great, I've got to be honest.
Yeah, even though in paper the Magtheridon trades very well, even with the buffed minions from Paladin, just 1 Libram of Justice can make all that hard work disappear. And the Paladin won't be sad about using Libram of Justice on 1 minion because you only play 1 real minion here, I guess, before Arcanist Dawngrasp. So I do favor Shaxy getting rid of it, going for another early flow here and just trying to progress the quest game plan makes a lot more sense. TIZS does have a pretty decent hand though, with Attendant, with Libram of Wisdom, access to Truth Seeker on curve, and another Libram of Wisdom. This is looking real good now. Like, Shaxy needs to generate Devolving Missiles or something to stop TIZS getting all this value.
That's right. Fire Sale's still a turn away from being playable. Rune Orb off the top, okay. Does allow you to, I guess, discover a card and ping away to clear off the 4-3.
Yeah, I think that's decent. He's gonna go First Flame Ping instead, it looks like, because an Arcane spell was already played in the Encounters flow, so that's fine.
Sure, yeah. Wow.
Oh, he's just turboing
Quest.
Quest this way. So do you think he plays Second Flame and Rune Orb as well?
Maybe. I mean, I guess if you're going down that game plan, right, it makes sense.
Well, here we go. Napries? That's part of... This is the game plan, Derek. He's just completing the quest.
Man, this is super fast quest completion. I don't think I've ever seen this before. The flow only helping to speed things up yet further, of course.
All he lacks is another Arcane spell and another Frost spell, which is not hard for a mage to put together. especially since you'll be discovering one off of Quest Stage 2.
It's not too heavy.
Another nice draw in the Banana Man to keep the card draw rolling. A very, very big Aldor Truthseeker on the following turn as well. That's the kind of minion that Mage does struggle to clear.
Alright, so Arcane, the last one needed for this layer of quests. So if this Primordial Studies gets him, like, a cheap... the quest progression gets him a cheap Arcane spell, then that's just it, right? Oh, so is it Frost?
Fire spell he needs, right?
Oh, true, yeah.
And he can do it next turn and play Varden. And there it is! This is Varden on curve!
This is the fastest Varden I've ever seen! Post-nerf to flow.
Yes, true.
Insta-ignite, right?
Yes, I do think so. It's bad in the fact that you shuffle another Ignite into your deck, which would be a really bad draw when you're just looking so aggressively for any kind of card draw. But it just has to be worth it. Varden on curve is unheard of.
Ignite, Snap Freeze the 2/2. This is so fast. I wonder if he trades the Guild Trader with that 1 extra mana remaining.
Sure, that makes sense to me. Probably would have preferred that before you go for the Ignite in order to draw something else, but it's reasonable enough. And Refreshing Spring Water off the top is premium as well to get you that extra card draw. This is looking like the kind of game that can get Shaxy into this series.
That's right. As soon as he hits Cram Session, it is close to game over. It's not that TIZS has no healing, but the healing is far slower than the amount of damage Shaxy can put forth in a smaller window of time. And he has essentially infinite damage as long as he can see the bottom of his deck. Oh my goodness.
Oi, oi, oi. This is so sick.
Monstrously fast.
Okay. Well, this is a good couple of turns, at least, from TIZS. Being able to go for Aldor Truthseeker as well could theoretically be Blade Master, right? Because it's already a 2/7. So you could trade in the Knight of Anointment and then buff your Samuro once, and it would then clear off the Varden, and you could then put the other buff on your remaining Aldor Truthseeker.
Yeah, I kind of like that play. He's going with the Barov instead, which is a similar idea of using an effect from hand to get rid of the Dawn Grasp, and he gets to push more damage face this way at the expense of having a slightly flimsier Truthseeker. I think it's fine. He's actually in a very tough position right now where he's just trying to be as aggressive as possible, right?
That's fair, but either way, Shaxy has multiple ways to clear this up because, oh my goodness, when I say you need card draw and you hit Springwater AI Cram Session as like the next 4 of your 5 cards, what more could you possibly ask for? This is disgusting.
Yep. He is just a bit of mana off away from being able to go Magtheridon Hot Streak Fire Sale. Boo-hoo.
Yeah, exactly.
This is just Fire Sale Ignite Face, right? Something like that.
Yeah, I kind of like fitting in the flow and the Hot Streak as well to get the Fire Sale in.
Sure.
Just when you have so much card draw, I think it still feels worth it to me.
Yeah, that's true. This Hot Streak doesn't need to be saved for anything in particular at this point.
Okay.
Well, he's saving the Hot Streak though, so...
Fair enough.
But I can tell you this, for TIZS, this feels nothing but fair.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. This is not doing it right now for TIZS. Even with Varian on the following turn, obviously a super powerful play, potentially even drawing him McGurgle Prime if that dies off. It's not going to be good enough, is it?
Nowhere close. Okay, insta flow for Shaxy. There's the other Cram Session as well.
Hello?
Is this just lethal?
Oh my
We'll see.
goodness, I wouldn't be surprised, honestly. Like, I wouldn't have minded Ignite first, honestly, just to shuffle another one in your deck to try and hit lethal.
Oh, there's just 2 fireballs in hand as well.
Oh my goodness.
Is this lethal now? 10 damage on each fireball plus the ignite, which I don't know how big it is right now.
Can't actually play the ignite on the same turn, right? Because it's all your mana to go double fireball. So just surviving the turn, make sure that you never ever die. I don't believe that there's any disruption available for TIZS either, with Royal Librarian being the most annoying thing that you can do to silence a frozen minion. But even then, that's obviously not coming close to lethal through all of this.
Yep, I love that Shaxy just saves all the burn for one big turn, 30-0. That plays around healing from TIZS if he has any of it. And right now he does have the ability to go to 30, but if he wants to commit it, it's actually losing some maximum healing because Shaxy left him at an awkward break point.
And that means that's just lethal, right? 10 damage from each fireball with the lab partner factored in as well. Very, very easily able to close out the game. And the clean sweep for TIZS is not going to become an actuality. Paladin losing its... well, I suppose it lost a couple games earlier on today, but we're starting to actually see the weakness of Paladin, right? I said it loses its first game. It hasn't actually won a game so far today, with Gura losing all 3 games on his Paladin. TIZS losing a game now on his Paladin. Given that we didn't see it once last week because it was banned literally every series that it appeared in, it starts to make you ask questions now, with Paladin being 0-4 right out the gate this week.
That's true. Of course, the meta last week was very different, that being last year of standing and there being a lot more warlocks, a lot more demon hunters, I would say as well. Paladin does tend to prey on those matchups a bit more heavily, but the likes of Quest Mage, I can definitely see how that gets the job done more consistently. So congratulations to Shaxy for getting the first win on the board. But for TIZS, he still does have, I think, a good matchup in the Demon Hunter for him left. And versus the Hunter, by no means do I think that's like rough for the Paladin. I'd say it's actually closer than I expected at first. I thought the Paladin would take such control of the board that Hunter is not able to deal their max burst game plan. But the more I play the Paladin side, the more I kind of realize like you need 2 halves of your deck to come together perfectly. Like the early curve into finding the healing. If you miss on either of those, Hunter can make your life pretty difficult.
That's right, yeah. There are so many disparate parts in this Paladin deck. It's somewhat disingenuous to call it like a mid-range curvy deck, and it's also not quite like a control-y deck either. Don't want to wade into too much drama on this one. But basically just the fact that it has, you know, Samuro in hand with no buffs can be awkward. Liadrin in hand with no spells played can be awkward. Libram of Justice, the equality effect one can be very awkward when you don't have the extra board clears as well. So like you said, you do need all your combo pieces to come together to allow you to defeat Hunter. But if they do, it feels almost unlosable as the Paladin. And getting off to a start with just a 1-drop is not bad. Even Aldor Truthseeker, I like as a keep.
Yeah, especially on coin. Okay, as long as he can fill out turn 3, this is just perfect curve for TIZS here. I do agree, though, we should lobby for changing all the Libram names. Libram +1/+1, Libram of Weapon, Libram of Equality. That's what they are. Working out decent for Shaxy, though. The Wriggling Horror does allow him to take 2 value trades. Obviously, it feels bad to not send the damage phase, and it is a little bit weak to city attacks, but if you don't take the trades, the Wriggling Horror is dead for sure. But okay, Shaxy not going to be bothered by it.
Kind of like it, yeah. You can just go for True Aim Crescent next turn to finish it off, and I guess if a buff comes down, you have Quick Shot as well to be able to finish it off. It is fairly vulnerable, but it's playing recklessly here for Shaxy, which you can understand the benefits of.
If he does go True Aim Crescent, the Quick Shot doesn't really have a good target at the moment. Maybe you start tracking. With Shaxy's version of the list, he is running Guardian Og Merchant, I believe. That would be a decent pickup here with that 1 mana spare.
Just going Quick Shot on the minion. Oh man, there are so many ways to approach this, because honestly, with Wrangler and True Aim Crescent in hand, low-key, I wanted to just go like double face, hero power, maybe weapon down the 1/1. And then just set up for Rhino plus the weapon attacks to be able to kill your minion with Burst before Libram of Hope ever comes down.
True.
May the light.
I mean, it still achieves a similar game plan, right? Obviously, you don't
True.
leave the Murloc in play for the Rhino, but it's safe to assume that TIZS will have played something else that's Rhino-able by that point. Shaxy does just preserve his board this way, gets to milk a little bit of extra damage.
Oh, is he
this is
thinking
close.
Wolpertinger?
I mean, he has 2 on board.
So you
Okay.
get to push 8 on this turn with the +2/+1. That is pretty good, actually.
One of them is insta-dead to the Knight of Anointment, but then you
Yeah.
just slam the other one. And if that's the whole turn, you get mana to play even more threats in the meantime. But okay, he does go Wolpertinger, then he's arboring up. I was about to ask the question, what do you think pushes more damage on average? And if we think about Rhino being played for Shaxy there, the best answer from TIZS is to play Libram of Justice, right? In this situation, he also does kind of need Libram of Justice plus City Tax, or I guess Samuro is the difference maker. That's going to be a big punish into Wolpertingers. That's not so big into the Rhino. But outside of that, I feel like the Wolpertingers push a similar amount of damage while just being faster.
So we obviously have Adorable Infestation on the Wolpertinger on board so that you can clear off with a swing of the weapon and keep the rest of the damage going face. Guardian
Ooh.
Org Merchant does allow it to survive, which is kind of interesting.
And because this one was on board before the
Yeah.
3/4, so he actually gets to attack face with it also,
Exactly.
right? Og Merchant the Wolpertinger, then you swing
That's
into
sick.
the 4/6. Oh! He doesn't want to let it go face? Oh, look at it! Look at that face, it's just begging to go face.
Really?
I don't like this. I think you missed some damage.
He missed 5 damage with this play. I agree. That feels like a pretty big oversight.
Moves quickly.
Shaxy just hesitated at the end of that. I think he might have realized.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Hero power. That's just less damage. Like, what is the Org Merchant doing if it's not coming down on this turn?
Yeah, I think this was just a bit of a slip up from Shaxy, but he's still in a good position overall because at the moment, his Libram of Justice, he does have the board clear though. The Broom, runner from the traded Royal Librarian. Shaxy is 2 damage off lethal currently.
He is. That's interesting. You have to miss hero power to do that, so... Oh, okay, sure. This allows you to go Org Merchant, Piercing Shot, hero power next turn, so this doesn't miss any damage.
Yeah, I like this.
Yeah.
Libram of Justice is what TIZS is. Sorry, Hope is what he's looking for. Libram of 8/8. Doesn't
Not to
find
be
it.
down, though. Ah,
Down.
throws it down. Doesn't even want to see what's coming next because I think he knows he is just dead. Oh no, it was there 4 damage hero power, so he was just dead literally every time because of the aim shot. Weird end there for Shaxy. Again, does feel like one of those situations where we're just left a little bit perplexed by his play. Honestly, I think the main thing for Shaxy is just he is making decisions that in segments seem to make sense, but he just needs to slow down for like 5 seconds and think what is cohesively the entire game plan, because it feels like he's changing his mind halfway through the turn quite a lot.
Okay, sorry. Watching this replay, I got a little bit confused, but that Wolpertinger that was on board, that was the first one that was on board, right? Like,
He only
not the one
played
he
one.
drew from the Warsong Wrangler.
Yes.
Did play 2 copies throughout the game, but I think the one that was left on board by the point that we were talking about, yeah, I do
I'm
think
almost
could have
certain.
pushed some extra damage. So if that is 100% the case, then I do think Shaxy could have cleaned this game up a little bit. I am always double checking versus Shaxy because for some reason I feel like I mistakenly criticize him as a player
Yeah.
or like for certain players more than other players because we do see all these unusual lines from him, but I
Yeah.
think this time it could have been more damage through to the late game. But in terms of macro gameplay, the choice to pick Wolpertinger at all is absolutely what won him this match. Rhino could have pushed quite a lot of damage as well, but it could have done so later, and at that point, TIZS maybe would have stopped playing minions to feed to the Rhino potentially.
Yeah, agreed completely. It was just the faster game plan, pushed more damage immediately, and as you said, put him in a very, very strong position. And so now for Shaxy, oh man, a quick mulligan, but one that I honestly was kind of interested in. A double keep there on Immo and Glide. Like, Glide against this Paladin deck, very often they do just hold a bunch of cards in hand until turn 4.
True. I mean, in the sense that a lot of their early curve plays draw them more cards.
Right.
Right? Like the Knight of Anointment, Hand of Adal, and the Alliance Bannerman. So it's not that they're holding cards, but they are cycling, and it does still end up with Glide sometimes being pretty good value. But holding that for that long and potentially having to walk into a turn where a secret comes into play is maybe a little bit scary. Oh, sorry, my mistake. TIZS is running the no secrets version of the Paladin.
Yeah, it was close. But obviously, it's not the ideal hand, right? The cards you are looking for are Sigil, Weapon, Spectral Sight in Outcast position, maybe some removal, but more so the quest completion. Although it was guaranteed quest completion with Glide in hand, it was not necessarily in the most efficient way possible, and you might want to save Glides for later on. But it's just something to think about, because I do think situations like this actually come up quite a lot against Paladin, where they do have about 7 to 8 cards in hand at this point.
And they are an insane 7 to 8 cards for TIZS to have buffed here with the Alliance Bannerman. He has the coin Truthseeker into Truthseeker curve, 4 discounts on the Librams in total. That's just so powerful. He can just curve into Libram of 8/8 the turn after, and that's absolutely the point of no return for Demon Hunter. It's just so tough for them to clear that behind the Divine Shield, and if they are able to kill it, they've often used too many combo pieces. So for Shaxy here, it's already a dire situation, even if he doesn't know it yet. He's going to go for Moarg Fell Scream, 1 minion, just to stick something on the board, which is actually, I mean, even though it looks like a desperate play, it's really smart for what TIZS is about to do, right? Because he sets up the I-Beam in Outcast, so into even a 5/7 Aldor Truthseeker, Shaxy can simply I-Beam and Hero Power that away, but there's a Libram of Wisdom now as well. Oof.
Right, which means it is still clearable with a trade of the Moarg as well. So, okay, a reasonable setup, all things considered for Shaxy. And with the pickup of a tradable, that's quest completion as well. This play, as ugly as it looked, was actually pretty spot on, I think.
Yeah, it allowed Shaxy to deal with the next expected threat while also progressing his own game plan. Picks up a Sigil now as well, so it's a likely chance to get to quest stage 2 done as well next turn. Looking nice, but for TIZS, the pressure doesn't stop here. Look at this, yet another Aldor Truthseeker into the Libram of Hope. I don't think even Shaxy's good foresight is going to help him out enough here.
It's just the exact type of hand that Demon Hunter can't deal with, right? Big Librams of Hope, big Aldor Truthseekers, Devout Pupil as well is such a clutch card in this build of the deck against OTK Demon Hunter. And it means that even with pretty nice discounts on Il'gynoth potentially going down to 4 mana on this turn, with the top deck of Skull, which is pretty spicy.
Wait, he might have lethal next turn if this discounts are right.
He gets
oh my god, that's Zero Cosmo! Oh my god! Are you serious? He's a Philosophy away from lethal next turn.
Oh. So you can't play Glide here, right? I think you're losing this game. So honestly, your best chance is just to cheese it.
Are you kidding me? Maybe Skull should just be back in the deck there.
Okay, he can't swing with the weapon, which obviously sucks, denies him a draw next turn. But Acrobatics setting up for 2 turns later lethal. It's possible. It could get there.
And, however, he will be dead next turn, potentially. Wait.
But one more turn.
14, 15. Yeah, okay, even though he has Libram of Weapon in hand and Hand of Adal.
Spectral
as well. God. Okay, even if he hits Philosophy, it's not lethal with the mana remaining if he has to spend 2 on Spectral Sight. But I think he can assume to be alive this turn at 23. 15 presented on board, 5 plus 2 able to come down as burst. He's actually alive at 1 versus TIZS's hand.
Is it correct to go Acrobatics and burn Kurtrus? Is this an overdraw quest reward game plan?
Yes, I think so. All you need is Philosophy, literally.
Oh. I think you're right. This is a very one-dimensional game plan now for Shaxy.
what year is it, or what month? It's felt like a whole year with the amount of balance changes we've had.
He does it, overdraw Kurtrus, and it's just low-key correct. He hits the philosophy. Oh my god, Gia, it's happening.
Okay, obviously, Shaxy took a long pause before that happened. So as TIZS, you're thinking this is deliberate. Something smells fishy, but he doesn't have the opportunity to play around it. He has 22 points of damage here. It's literally one off.
Something smells fishy, but it's
21,
not.
my bad. Yeah.
It's not this meta. Fishy Flyer, get out of here. This is a combo meta here, truly. And it's here to stay. What a game by Shaxy. What a reverse sweep as well. The Paladin, 2 series in a row, is just getting 0-3 swept for the loser here. And Shaxy, overdrawing Kurtrus, gets the win. TIZS, he waves goodbye. This is, I think, the last time that we're going to see him on stream for Grandmasters, as he is announcing his retirement next season. And there we go.
Just in a Skype call as well or something.
Just so they can wave each other. Yeah, just the pretty emotionless goodbye, but again, it's kind of appropriate for TIZS. We haven't really got to know him all too well as a player during his season in Grandmasters, but still, I will be somewhat sad to see him go, and we of course wish him the best of luck with whatever he chooses to go forward next outside of his competitive Hearthstone career. I believe that does lock him out of potential for playoffs as well, given that he had only accrued 9 points at the end of this, which does put him below everyone above him, whereas Shaxy is now looking pretty much guaranteed to make it through to playoffs with 12 points having been gained now. And what a Shaxy way to get the win there, overdrawing Kurtrus, and it's just correct. You love to see it.
Oh man, what a banger 2 series we've already had today, Derek. Even though this one didn't go all the way down to how we might have expected it to for TIZS, he did take it to a 5-game series. I'm very happy to see him give us a worthy goodbye as he does retire next season. It means that Glory and Shaxy will be moving forward to tomorrow from this group. Shaxy, with the creative lines of play, always bringing us something unexpected to the table. I do think he would also be a worthy competitor through to Worlds, because that's just the conversation now. These are all players that are making it to the playoffs very likely.